This week's book is A Visit to Moscow. Now let's make sure we get all the credits right. Adapted by Anna Allswanger from a story by Rabbi Raphael Grossman, illustrated by Evgenia Neighbor. Since this is a picture book, everyone is equally important in telling the story.
My name is Alina Adams. I was born in Odessa, USSR. I wrote 2 books set in the Soviet Union. My daughter was born in America. I'm going to tell her about the Soviet experience through books.
So let's get serious for a moment, because it's a children's picture book, and as we know, if it's a children's picture book with either a Soviet or Jewish theme, what does that mean? Sadness is about to come. Something sad is about to come. So in this story, in A Visit to Moscow, there is a story about a child whose parents have never let him leave his home because he's a Jewish child in Moscow, and they don't want him tainted, and they don't want him abused, and they don't even want him to go to school because they don't want him to learn the Soviet dogma. They want him to be raised the way they want him to be raised. So it's a pretty not fun sounding life to be a kid who's never left the house and has just lived in one room. So let me ask you this as a young person. How much is it worth sacrificing for Judaism?
Bro. That's like a Devar Torah question.
Well, let's hear it.
I don't think it's worth sacrificing all your education for, because I don't think that's very in line with the Jewish ideals.
Well, he was being educated at home. He was basically being homeschooled. I actually don't think the homeschooling piece is as much of the problem as never leaving your house, never having been outside, only looking at the sun and the moon through your window piece of it. I mean, homeschooling is fine. We've done it in this house. So it's not so much that I'm coming down on homeschooling. It's that they kept this child completely isolated from the world in which he lived, which was not a great world. It was being a Jew in the Soviet Union in the mid-1960s, because the story is from 1965. So his father had his reasons. This wasn't a purely abusive relationship, but he was doing it so that his child would not be hurt by the outside non-Jewish world.
There isn't really a group of people that everyone likes. That, you're gonna have problems, the world is complicated, you're gonna have problems, for who you are, and also you're gonna have problems for what you do. So, I think the earlier you learn how to, navigate that, the better.
So, that actually brings up the follow-up question. Let's turn it a little bit. How much should you protect your child from the real world? And this is not an imaginary threat. These are real threats, as whether they're based on identity or socioeconomic status or nationality or anything else. How much should a child be protected? How far should a parent go to protect their child from the real world?
You're the parents.
Well, you're the one who's being parented. What do you think?
I think it matters on age. When there's you can explain different ideas to people at different levels at different ages, and I don't know, that's what you did, so I can't really compare you. I don't have a control parent, but I do feel like you parented well. I was aware of things when I was younger, but I didn't process that I was aware of them to the point that when I needed to be aware of them, I was like, I am aware of them. I think I said aware of them 7 times. That was not
You're
a good
very
process.
aware. You're very aware. But actually, yes, let me jump on that. Let me follow on that. You are a lot of things, and in the history of your peoples has been a lot of unpleasantness. How early should a child be told? Should a child be told? That when we're talking about protecting a child, it's not just protecting them from the danger that might be happening right now. What about the knowledge of all the things that have come before?
I mean, you can't be Jewish and not be aware of those things, really, because that's what all of our holidays are about. So, to a certain extent, I knew that, they don't really like us, a lot of the time, which is, eh. But, but also, you can't really take out the painful parts of history. You can't take out the hard parts of history, because then you're just letting the people who committed those acts not really be held accountable. You're, because you have to learn about what happened. You can't just, pleasant wash your own history.
Well, that's my question. Should you, especially for children? I mean, between your Soviet grandparents and your African American grandparents, they've seen a lot of stuff. Here's my question to you. Do you need to know that?
I think you're assuming I need to know all or nothing. I think there are some things that you should know and you want to know, and then there are some things that they don't want to share, and I don't have to know that.
What about the things you don't want to know? Should you be made to know things that you don't want to know?
Yeah, that's the whole point of school.
Okay. All right.
No kid knows what they need to know.
So do you think it's good to have children's books like A Visit to Moscow, which cover difficult history?
Yeah, I do.
She is very clear about that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Yes. Sometimes the knowledge needs to be accessible to kids in a way that they can understand, and pictures makes it better because the colors, the drawing style, it changes throughout the whole thing, and you're like, even if you're not really understanding what's going on in the story, you're like, this is sad, and this is happy. And then you'll figure it out eventually.